Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Father-Son Packers podcast, your source for Packers news, notes, and analysis. My name is Tommy, and I'm one of your hosts, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, my dad, Matt. Dad, how you doing?
Doing all right. It's a beautiful day here today. Lots of bright sun. Garden looked nice.
Yep. It's, we're almost in summer. I feel like, to me, summer starts, after Memorial Day. And so, it's, officially summer now.
Memorial Day to Labor Day. Forget this.
Yeah,
Forget all this stuff about actual, astronomy and solar.
Yeah, I don't care about any of that. It's a vibe more than anything. The two arguments are Memorial Day to Labor Day, which is, in my opinion, or if you were just June, July, August, and I'd be like, yeah, okay, that's summer too. That's a fair cutoff. All this other stuff is just needlessly complicated. You don't need to do all of that. But we are here. It is summer. We are here to finish up our deep dive topics. We have two more players to go. We're combining Domani Jackson and Trey Smack into this one just because we figured it would be difficult to do an entire deep dive episode on a kicker.
Short.
I don't know how we could have done an entire episode on Trey Smack, so we are combining that.
We've had to watch every single one of his kicks and give a little play by play.
We would have had to do he hit it 2 millimeters to the right on this one, and if you notice, his striking, where he was aiming for was here, and he missed. It probably just would have been difficult to do an entire deep dive episode on that without it coming off as being very boring. But so we're combining those. If you like what you hear, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a review, and check out the rest of our deep dive episodes, which are back in the feed. We've done one for every single draft prospect so far, Packers draft pick rather so far. So if you want to go check out ones on Brandon Cisse, Chris McClellan, Deny Dennis Sutton, or Jagger Burton, or etc. Go check those out there. So actually, really, it's just those ones and then the ones we're doing today. But anyway, if you want to go check those out in the feed. Once again, We're on, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music. Leave a comment, leave a review, tell a friend. Follow us on Blue Sky at Father Son Packer for, updates on Packers related news and etc. But once again, we're here. We're going to be here even after this deep dive stuff for the entire off season, doing an episode a week. So don't turn that dial.
Yeah, there weren't that many deep dives this year.
No, some years we have 13, and it's the entire off season.
This is why you expected more. It's they're only 6.
Yeah, but this year we have a smaller draft class, which will leave us more opportunity to do some, I think, more fun episodes. I think we have some biggest question mark drafts coming up.
You don't do a deep dive on every...
Oh, we could do every UDFA. Although we were discussing the other day, when was the last truly impactful UDFA the Packers had? And I think we were okay, Emmanuel Wilson probably counts. But besides Emmanuel Wilson, it's you go back and it's you're was this guy a draft pick? It's oh no, yeah, he was a 7th rounder. That doesn't count. It's Carrington Valentine. No, Carrington Valentine was a 7th rounder. It's Travis Glover was a draft pick. And then it's that really played, and it's probably Chris Barnes is the other one.
Yeah, I mean they had some street free agents who are actually late draft picks from other teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Where it's that also don't count.
Yeah, we're not and Kamal Haddon, who was a draft pick of the Chiefs, but then came over to the Packers, and yeah, so there are a couple like that, but those are I would not quite count. And then the other one we decided was Danny Whalen. I think was also an UDFA, so I guess he's pretty impactful. He's been a really good punter so far for the Packers, so that's something at least. But anyway, so like we said, check out those other deep dives. Keep the dial tuned here for the rest of the offseason. We'll be doing an episode every week, talking. Once training camp comes, we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about the upcoming, what the division looks like. We always do one of those every year. That's always a fun one. So like we said, episodes a week, every single week. It's going to be a good time. However, unfortunately today, we do have to start with some really terrible news. If you have been living under a rock, you probably did not hear about this. But during the last week, right before OTAs or open OTAs were about to start for the Packers, Josh Jacobs was arrested this week in a domestic violence incident. In terms of timeline, this is per Fox 11 News, just to, put all the details out there. It's a very serious thing, and it's, I think, important to get all of the details, out there and talked about, because I think sometimes things like these kind of get softened when you don't hear all the details, and it's easy to ignore, but this is a very serious situation. So I think it's important to talk all about that. So this is per Fox 11 News, local Green Bay reporting. So on the morning of Saturday, May 23rd, a neighbor of Josh Jacobs called 911 about a potential disturbance. And the dispatcher was saying there were reports of, quote, yelling and screaming and things being thrown. Later on, during that day, another 911 call was made by a neighbor after a woman arrived at her home asking for help with the dispatcher telling officers, quote, "The neighbor is calling now saying her neighbor was assaulted," end quote. And so that was on Saturday. 3 days later, on Tuesday, May 26th, Jacobs was arrested and booked in jail on 6 recommended charges, including 2 felonies, 2 counts of strangulation and suffocation, which are felonies, battery with the domestic abuse enhancer, criminal damage to property with domestic abuse, disorderly conduct with domestic abuse, and intimidation of a victim / dissuade complaints. Jacob's lawyers immediately put out a statement saying that they were denying the allegations and talking about how the investigation was still in its early stages. On Wednesday, the next day, Jacobs was then released from jail without any formal charges yet being filed. Now, the charges have not been dropped, but they have not been officially filed yet. So they still might be filed in the future, with the district attorney, David Lassie, his office saying he, quote, "has requested additional investigation as there is reason to believe that additional evidence may exist that would impact whether criminal charges are appropriate and what charges would be issued." So, to be clear, still might be charged, just has not been officially been charged. But I did see some people saying the charges had been dropped. That is not the case. Jacobs' lawyers, meanwhile, did put out another statement saying they were happy that Jacobs was released and to, again, ask for patience as the justice system plays out. And so that was from, his camp and what they're saying and what his lawyers are saying. But I think, this seems like something that is going to, I guess we're going to keep getting details from this as time goes on, because it does seem like they are still doing investigations on what charges they want to bring and whether or not they're going to bring charges. And so obviously it's just a really horrible situation and incredibly disappointing. I think we're still going to be hearing, news about this as it trickles out, because I think obviously it seems like this is far from done. There's going to be an investigation. We don't really know what's going to happen from the, Brown County police department yet in terms of what charges are actually brought, if it's going to be those initial charges, if it's going to be more charges, if it's going to be different charges. I do think, something to also point out is that if you or someone has ever been the victim of domestic violence, there are resources out there for you, specifically the National Domestic Violence Hotline. So on their website is thehotline.org, and then their number is 800-799-SAFE. And they're a really great resource for finding shelters, crisis support, legal help, counseling, in terms of local resources. And I do want to, point out they also do accept donations. So go check that out there as well, thehotline.org. But Dad, I just wanted to put that out there because I think it's a good resource. And, for those of you who find this as disturbing as I think most of us find this, I think it's, would be a good time to donate to a cause that is doing a good job of helping victims of these horrible incidents. But Dad, really disappointing to see, really terrible stuff. I mean, there's really nothing more to say there, right?
Yeah, it was just horrible to hear about it. And I want to see the process play out properly. I don't want to see any of this that the people talk about where, the teams have more tolerance depending on what kind of star you are. It's no, none of that nonsense.
Yeah.
I want, fair, equitable, blind justice that
regardless of how good you are at football. And to be fair, also innocent until proven guilty is also an important thing, but this definitely needs to be investigated out. I don't think he should be with the team until it is fully investigated out, and then if it is found that he is guilty of these charges, I think it's just you cut bait and it's just you move on entirely.
Yeah, I think as an organization, I sure hope the Packers feel that way, that if he's found to be has any guilt in the situation, that he just can't be part of the team. Can't have
that on the team.
Yeah.
No.
Be aligned with somebody who commits domestic violence.
Yeah, and so this does seem like something that's going to be a long, I would imagine, drawn-out investigation. Like we said, on Jacobs' end, they're denying those allegations. But, that's something where the whole, department of the, Brown County Police Department is going to do a whole investigation. And, we hope they are very thorough in that investigation. And like you said, no preferential treatment just because you play for the Packers. And like we said, if he's found guilty, you just got to, I think, cut him, move on. And, you can't just be he's so good at football. We can look past. No, that's not how these things should be. In terms of, there's no easy way to transition here. There's no easy transition, but this is a football podcast, so we are going to also talk about the football side of it. But obviously, there's no easy way to segue. In terms of looking at what this means for the Packers on the field, which is obviously the least important thing, you look at the running back room now, and it does look very thin if Jacobs is not in it. It would probably be Lloyd starting. And then in terms of OTAs, which we'll talk about the news from that, it does seem like Pierre Strong would be the next guy up there. And with Chris Brooks still in his kind of, two kind of backup third down role, the running back room does suddenly, like we said, this is far less important than what's going on with the actual real life events. The running back room, though, would be very thin.
Yeah. We'll see how that plays out. I haven't really don't want to spend too much time to
it's not
ramifications. We can talk about what
I would imagine
and other things.
Yeah, so it seems like Pierre Strong would be the next guy up there after Marshawn Lloyd, because Marshawn Lloyd, so we can talk a little bit about OTA news now. Like we said, no easy way to transition. But the big news from OTA was that, Marshawn Lloyd initially was, the number one running back, but then he was not participating in team drills later and then was participating in individual drills. And then because he was missing team drills, Pierre Strong was the next running back there. So it does seem like the depth chart at running back is kind of starting to solidify, which was something we were going to watch for at OTAs, as Lloyd and then Brooks in his own role, like we were saying, and then Pierre Strong. And so what are your thoughts? Do you think, so we don't actually know if Lloyd is actually injured or if he is just being held out precaution-wise. I think the thing with Lloyd, and like Ben Simmons was saying before, was, we have hope that he'll be able to contribute this year, but we've had hope before, and there's just no way of knowing. So I think it does seem like that's the way the running back room is stacking up right now. Do you think the Packers should look to add another running back?
I think they needed to add another running back already.
Yeah,
and I was surprised they didn't draft somebody or bring back Emmanuel Wilson.
It was the Emmanuel Wilson one. Yeah, is one
did
where
not get very much money at all.
No,
I was very surprised they didn't bring him back at that price, because he was able to play when they needed him to. So. Yeah, and then Lloyd, he and the report that I forget who it came from, that he did participate in team drills the day before the OTAs that was fully open to the press. And we got the reports that he looked good in the individual drills and then just didn't do the team drills. So, yeah, and then of course that started a wild speculation of, he's out again.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, well, that's the thing, is like, we don't know if it's just like, are they changing their approach with Lloyd, where it's like they're just not going to have him do team drills this early in this. And if you told me that was the plan, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, he hasn't made it through a whole summer yet, so like, if you wanted to say, hey, we're going to be super,
they just didn't say anything.
We just don't know exactly, and so. And also, I will say, like, Pierre Strong was the next guy up, but also Damian Martinez was out. There were a lot of players out at this OTAs that was open to the media. And this was the Wednesday, open to the media one. So some stuff might have changed since then, but we just don't have any more reports. But as of Wednesday, players who were out were, Parsons and Kraft and Wyatt and Tom, obviously, all dealing with injury. Jordan Riley and Kamal Hadden as well, all dealing with injury from last year, where they're still rehabbing those injuries. But a lot of players that were, maybe we didn't know were dealing with anything, such as Benjamin St-Juste, Isaiah McDuffie, Colin Oliver, Donovan Jennings, Jacob Monk, Domani Jackson, Damian Martinez, Drake Dabney, and Jonathan Ford were all not practicing. And so, in terms of, like, if we talk about the depth chart at all, it is important to note, hey, maybe Damian Martinez might have gotten a look before Pierre Strong, but also he was hurt, so he did not. So that's always possible, but a good amount of players on that injury report.
Yeah, and it seems like Chris Brooks, maybe they're just going to stick to his specific role if they didn't have him starting there. But who knows?
I mean,
but the skill positions get kind of bounced around a lot in these. I mean, you saw like the two
receivers,
starting
especially.
Receivers were. Who was that? Was that like Melton and Savion Williams? Were they the ones who started?
I think weird? That's right. But also don't take anything from the starting receivers.
So that means nothing. And but the tight ends were, but of course the options were.
There aren't any. Yeah,
there were only those two.
There aren't any.
They started two tight ends. They only have two. healthy on the roster right now.
Well, we keep trying to sign him, and they just keep not passing physicals, unfortunately.
What is in that pen that the tight ends are signing with?
Yeah, exactly. Some kind of Rumpelstiltskin contract. I was a little disappointed to see St. Juste was out because I feel like he has a chance to win that outside corner job. And so, like, if he misses a good chunk of the offseason, that's probably like going to be harder for him to win. But so that was really a little bit tough as well.
Yeah, that would bother me a lot when I saw it. It's like, I'm hoping it's one of those things that's like they show up to camps and it's like, oh, wait, no, we're not going to quite clear you yet. In a couple more, and then in a couple days, they're ready to go, kind of thing. You see that sometimes when players report. It's like, nah, we don't want you to start yet.
Hopefully you'll be, back at it by next week. We'll see. In terms of other nuggets from OTAs, I thought these were all interesting, and you can kind of just tell me which you find the most interesting after I go through them. But Warren Brinson got the first reps at nose tackle, which was interesting. Now keep in mind Wyatt was out, so maybe if Wyatt was playing, that would be a different initial lineup, but he was the first reps at nose tackle with Hargrave and Brooks beside him in base. So something to kind of keep in mind. Baron Sorrell was the first snaps at edge 2 opposite LVN. So we kind of thought he would be, first dibs there, but that is kind of as expected. Zaire Franklin is going to wear the green dot. So that means he's going to call the plays from, it'll be called into him and then he will relay the plays. The big interesting thing there is that probably means he is the sole linebacker on the field in dime personnel, which is not, I think, what really anyone wants to see. I think most people would rather it be Edgerrin Cooper just because Edgerrin Cooper's a better player. And taking Cooper off the field to have Franklin on the field feels like you're not having your best 11 out there, but I mean, we can talk about more about that. It seems like you have thoughts on that, but anyway.
Well, especially when you like third down, okay, passing down, try to stop the third down conversion.
Yeah.
By
Franklin
far,
does not cover
our
space
best
like Cooper does.
Linebacker,
yeah.
By far is Cooper. So if he's off the field in like third and long because you need Franklin calling the plays, then there's
it doesn't make sense.
What we have here is a failure to communicate, a failure to put too much emphasis on communicating.
That's the thing. I was like, I would rather it be McKinney because McKinney's just going to be on the field always as long as he's healthy. So, and you never want to take him off. But like, I guess it seems like just no one has safeties as their green dot guys, which I guess is like it's harder to call things if you're not right in the middle.
Be able to communicate with the
line
guys on the line as well as behind. So they wanted somebody in the more in the center of the defense from front to back as well as from sideline to sideline.
Other stuff, the playbook apparently is going to be severely pared down this year, or maybe not severely pared down, but Matt LaFleur said they went in and are taking chunks out of it that like worked on paper but never worked when they ran the plays.
Yeah,
I would just love to say, are we finally going to see less end arounds? Because I was so tired of all of the end arounds we used to run, where
jet sweep to Al Lazard,
especially jet sweeps on 4th and 1. Outside pitches from outside runs from shotgun on 4th and 1. Oh my goodness! Like just light all of those plays on fire. But so that was interesting.
Yeah. The other thing is like, I just want to comment on that because, okay, we went through and looked at the plays that weren't actually working and we're getting rid of them. It's like, you're only doing that now?
Yeah, so say several years later.
You don't do this every year? You don't go through this a little more frequently than say, oh, we've been running this play for 7 years and we're just now discovering that it sucks.
It's going backwards every play, but all right. Next time. It's due. It's due for a win. Other stuff, Pierre Strong, current running back, 3.5, I guess you'd call it. Bo Melton moved back to wide receiver. And then Trey Smack, he went 7 for 8, but they were all under 40 yards. So that's like, I think, not a good day, I would say.
But I did hear somebody say that, he in college, he's kicking like a really high ball. And I heard somebody report they thought he was working on kind of a low driving kick. So if he misses one when he's practicing a new technique, it's like you're fiddling with your golf swing. It's like, okay, I want to try to hit a hard cut here instead of a hook, want to draw. So
I mean, I don't know how I feel about like
tinkering.
Yeah. Like, why are we tinkering already? Like, do we really need to be? But I guess we'll see over the course of OTAs. And so, yeah, those are the main nuggets.
Which you prefer? He missed it because he's tinkering and he should be tinkering, or he just missed it?
I guess that's fair.
It was a 35-yarder.
Yeah. From the right hash. That's the hash he missed from mostly when he was in college, which we'll talk about.
I was thinking about that. You brought it up about that, right? Yeah. The hashes are not as wide,
in the pros.
So I was thinking maybe it won't be that big a deal.
And maybe it won't. Maybe that was a one-time miss. Maybe it's the only one he's missed so far. I guess we'll see. Any thoughts on any of those like OTA nuggets?
Oh, other things that I'm interested. So I figured it was going to be Franklin for the green dot. Not happy with it, but I was expecting it. Brinson is the nose for now. I think that's just really early. Like McClellan is like just getting there. You don't expect him to be put to start already
right away.
And Sorrell is kind of the same story. Oliver's out, and
it would be him
DDS is a rookie.
Yeah.
Is just a rookie. So basically, it's like Sorrell versus Cox.
Could have been Cox as well.
And so I was thinking there's a chance it could have been Cox, but I think they really like Sorrell.
I really like
Oh,
Sorrell.
speaking of Sorrell and Cox and all the edge rushers, one thing we didn't talk about, because it's not actually news, it's just like rampant speculation and rumor, is Josh Sweat.
We can talk about that if it ever happens. It's not going to happen though. But yes,
you don't want to give that any.
Apparently,
that's all the oxygen.
Yeah,
that deserves. But I mentioned it once.
There are rumors the Packers have called the Cardinals, and that the Packers are on the list of teams that he would want to go to, along with the Eagles, and I forget the third team. There was another team as well. I don't remember. But so
maybe Tampa.
It's possible, but I guess we can talk about it if it happens.
What would
it
mean to the edge room? And should you send an edge back?
I don't think you need to, like, plus a pick. I don't think you need to do both. Like, because they're not going to want just a player. They're going to want a pick. And I don't think you need to send a pick and a player. That feels unnecessary.
LVN for Josh Sweat.
I mean, sure. I think that's, you're improving, like, your edge room, but I would rather just send a pick and then, because, like, you're kind of in a similar spot then, where the issue is, like, who's the opposite day starting guy. Like, you're improving that initial starting guy for sure. Like, Sweat is better than LVN, but you still have a similar problem that you already have. I don't know. I think I wouldn't mind the move, but I wouldn't do a player for it. Oh, and then the other interesting thing is there were some, like, young players who got some reps with the ones. McClellan got a few. Cisse got a few. And I think Dennis Sutton might have gotten a few. And then the most interesting one, though, so the initial starting offensive line was Morgan at left tackle, and then
Banks,
and then Ryan, and then Belton, and then I think Kennard was at right tackle.
Kennard was at right tackle.
For Tom, who's out injured, still rehabbing. And then the interesting thing was John Williams got some reps with the ones at left guard instead of Banks. So John Williams, who is, if you don't remember, he was a 7th-round pick of Green Bay last year out of Cincinnati. But then he dealt with injuries all season and didn't play any snaps. So he's almost going into his rookie year, kind of.
He's like an extra draft pick this year.
Exactly. And so he's, it seems probably the 7th guy on the depth chart right now, based on that.
And then Burton was the kind of the next step at center behind Ryan.
But he didn't get any snaps with the ones, all with the 2s and 3s.
And then at right guard, it was...
Oh, goodness.
Glover?
I think it was Glover. I think that's right. And then it was a amalgamation of guys after that. It was like a big mix. But so those are the main news from OTAs. I guess we should probably get on to doing our deep dives because we're already like 26 minutes into this and we have 2 guys to get through. But so the first of those, though...
I mean, one of them's not going to take that long.
That's true. The first one, which is going to take maybe a little bit longer, is corner. Domani Jackson, 6th-round pick 201 out of Alabama. He was about 224 on the consensus board. A little bit about him. He's going to be turning 24 next season in November. He is from Southern California, although he moved around a lot as a kid. I think his family was in the military, and so he moved around a lot. And then he spent 2 years at USC before transferring to Alabama. He was a big, huge high school recruit coming out of high school in California. And,
top
big
5,
time. Yeah, big time major track athlete as well. Was like running the hundreds at states in California, and so California's a big state, so like that's pretty impressive. Was a 5-star recruit. Was like really seen as like someone coming into USC who's going to help change that defense. And it just kind of never really worked out for him between like dealing with injuries while coming out of like high school and then dealing with injuries at USC and then transferring to Alabama. And it went better for him at Alabama, but never really lived up to the prospect that people thought he was going to be. What was your initial reaction when you saw this pick, though?
I liked him as a late round corner. I had been mocking him a lot as the second corner for the Packers, usually picking one in round 2 through 4. And then adding most of the time Domani Jackson as the second corner. Now, it is true that was this the best position to double up on with only 6 picks.
See, that's where I'm at, because I think player wise, I am totally like A-okay with this pick. I think he's got to remember, this is an outside of the top 200 pick. Most of the time, these guys are not going to hit. But if you're going to take a swing, taking a swing on a very athletic, good size, starting corner out of Alabama, who was a like major prospect and maybe just didn't live up to that. I think that's a totally reasonable swing in the 6th round, and a guy with, his size and like linear speed profiles as like a pretty good special teamer as well. I think it's totally reasonable in the 6th round. My only question is, could you have done, I think O-line was just such a bigger need than the draft generally addressed. And I think I've said this in every single one of our deep dives. It's like, oh, I could have taken a lineman here. But so I feel that way again, similarly here, but I won't, I won't sound like a broken record and like say all the reasons I think we need a lineman. But if you were going to take a corner, I am totally fine with this being the pick.
Yeah. And I should say that when I'm taking 2 corners in a lot of drafts, I not only was using, all the extra picks that we had. So we had, we started off with 8 and ended up with 6. And I was also trading back a bunch. So I was getting like 2 corners, 2 or 3 linemen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
On top of an edge rusher and
I mean, it clearly seemed like there was a, priority to fix the corner room, and that the front office felt like the corner room was not good enough last year. And to be fair, it was not. I'll just say there were several rooms that were not good enough last year as well that also could have used a little more help.
This is like standards. Like, okay, sign a free agent and draft 2.
3 guys, and draft 2. That's the classic. Like, this isn't working. We're throwing 3 new guys in that room, and we're going to see what happens. But anyway, I talked very briefly just now about him being like a super plus athlete. Do you want to talk a little bit about his physical profile, and then we'll talk about production, we'll talk about what, scouts had to say. But physically, how does he stack up against other Packers corners?
Yeah, so his overall RAS is elite at 9.04, so that's like 90th percentile, but he did not do all the testing. His closest comps on RAS are Stanley Thomas Oliver, a guy who's, I think, now in the Canadian Football League, but also AJ Terrell. So one really good comp and one guy who didn't get much of a chance in the NFL. Amongst corners, he's 87th percentile height at 6 foot and 3/4 inch, 74th percentile weight at 194 pounds, 39th percentile arm length, 31 1/8, 48th percentile hand size, 9 1/8, 55 percentile wingspan, 75 7/8. So in terms of his, dimensions, is one of the longer ones for his arm related. It's good speed with elite 91st percentile in the 40 at 4.41, 77th percentile in the 20-yard split at 2.59 seconds, and 62nd percentile in the 10-yard split at 1.58. So what you see is that he's got the long speed. So he's building up to that 100-meter time.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not getting out of the blocks really fast, but he's building up the long speed. His jumps, he only did one of the jumps. He did 33 and a half inches in the vert, which is only 39th percentile.
Yeah.
He didn't do the broad and didn't do either of the agilities. So
he said
that's not a good sign either.
Yeah, 40 only. And I think that probably that vert didn't go well. And he's probably like, well, not doing the broad anymore. Yeah.
So I think that the vert might have been at his pro day, actually.
Okay.
And not at the combine. And then he didn't do anything more at the pro day. I don't know what his plan was originally for the pro day, but his bench was good as well. He had 19 reps on the bench. It's over 9. That's in the kind of the great to elite range for corners. Now to compare him to the corners that have been on the team under Gutekunst, either because he's drafted them or he's signed them as free agents or trades or whatever. Guys who played 100 snaps in the NFL or been drafted by Gutekunst and been on the Packers. There have been 21 of those players. in Green Bay. And they have an average RAS of 9.04, basically exactly on Jackson's RAS.
Gutekunst loves athletes.
That sounded weird, but anyway,
exactly on the I mean it's on the it is on the dot. He's like right on the dot of what the RAS is.
I mean that's the RAS of the average player again, not the average of
RAS.
the player's RAS scores.
Yeah.
Though that's relative athletic score.
Yeah, it's like an ATM.
There's a win.
Pin number. ATM
I found a way to double up on the word. I was like, okay, I know I'll hit this eventually. Yeah, so that's the comparison of the RAS overall. But if you look at the individual measurements, he's like slightly taller than the average Green Bay corner under Gutekunst, just like 3/4 of an inch. So basically right on for the average weight, right on for the average hand and arm length, 2 inches below the average wingspan. There is nothing to compare for short shuttle, 3-cone, or broad jump. And so we move on to the vert. He has the third worst amongst those 21 corners, behind only Tony Brown and Keyshawn Nixon.
Tony Brown, that's a name. Yeah. That's a name I haven't thought of in a long
time.
The
guy we affectionately called Crazy Tony.
Crazy Tony. Yep.
You realize I was looking, and he has the second best 40 time of these 21 corners.
He was like a pretty serviceable corner. Like he was pretty solid.
Yeah. And then after that, his Domani Jackson's bench press was tied for the best amongst these corners with Shamar Jean-Charles.
Mm-hmm.
And his 40 time is tied for fourth best with Cisse. And his 20-yard split is basically right on average, and his 10-yard split was a little below average. So it compares to the Packers to those measurements. And then he also have a little bit of on-field measurements from the Shrine Bowl, which also has the Zebra Tech along with the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, the GPS tracking stuff. Yep.
Yeah. And so he did not test as elite in these as he did at the Combine. It's been kind of the story of the draft for the Packers so far. Out of some of the 183 corners, and it's like the last 7 years or something, 64th percentile in on-field speed. And the weight adjusted, he's kind of like right on the middle of the weight, so it's not really changing anything. So I just give the raw. That was 49th percentile for the max acceleration, so kind of right in the middle. 88th percentile for maximum deceleration.
Stopping on that pretty well.
Yeah. And so maybe should have done some agilities.
Maybe.
if you can stop that abruptly. I don't know.
No one does them these days, so
no.
It's just following the crowd. Yeah.
So overall, he for what he tested, he mostly tested well, except for that vertical jump, which if you look at the Packers, so they're more of a stickler for the broad than the vert. If you look at all the players who have like been under Gutekunst, there's more red for the vert than there is for the. Though he is the only one that's been in the red. So red in RAS lingo means below average.
Yeah,
I should say for all you listeners out there. I'm just
not like
babbling on.
He's not
jargon.
Like bottom 10th percentile, but yeah, I mean he is not as explosive as like it definitely seems like other Packers corners have been, but size, speed. I think he's going to be a big special teams contributor, like with that profile in terms of like kind of a linear athlete that's, got good top end speed, but maybe isn't the twitchiest. Like, I think, I think it makes sense in terms of what they're going to ask him to do. He's going to probably, I would imagine, be as like a corner outside only. I don't think he's going to have much inside flexibility, versatility. And that, because I mean, that's the other thing is like when you go to look at his usage, like, he was pretty much only an outside corner in college also.
Yeah, and so we'll see. I think it's worth taking the flyer on, and he could develop into a gunner.
Yeah, I think he's going to be definitely on kick coverage, punt coverage. Like you'd imagine that's how he's going to like have to make his spot on like the active roster for game days. Is he's going to have to contribute there. But I think he has the physical profile to contribute there. And we'll talk a little bit. I mean, he was a pretty good tackler as well at corner, so hopefully that translates as well. Didn't always take the best angles, but like when he was in position to make the tackle, he was pretty good at getting guys down. But that kind of brings us over to his production profile. And I touched briefly, he was an outside corner only. These numbers are per PFF. But he split time equally between each side, so it's not like he was like a one side only corner. He played left and right. It's interesting. 2025 is an interesting year for him because his playtime fluctuated a good amount. He started the first 7 games, but then he didn't start / he played a limited role in the next 6 games. And then he started and played the most snaps he played in any 3-game stretch over the final 3 games, including the conference championship game and Alabama's playoff game. So in the biggest games, he came back to starting and playing the most snaps he'd played. But there was a weird bit in the middle of the season where he didn't really play very much. And it seems like there are like conflicting, reports as to why that is, whether or not they just like the guys behind him more, whether or not it's, in modern college football, you need to play everyone or else they're going to leave in the transfer portal the next year. So they needed to get younger guys snaps, whether or not he was dealing with an injury, which I think that's also something there where he was kind of dealing with like a nagging thing that wasn't enough to keep him out of games, but was enough to like kind of like hinder him a little bit. So that's just, it's a weird little thing about his, production and usage profile, but it's just something to kind of point out. In terms of when he was playing, though, in 2025, pretty solid year in coverage. Now, he was good in coverage, but not very good when the ball was thrown at him, which is kind of like an interesting, like, kind of dichotomy.
Lack of ball skills?
Yeah, so
perhaps fit right in, perhaps?
In terms of our probably favorite snap for coverage, yards per coverage snap, which kind of measures like, hey, if you're out there a lot and you're not getting thrown at, your yards per coverage snap are going to be low, which is like what you want from a corner. But he was amongst, all the corners that, like, this is the same group of corners I looked at as for Cisse. I was like corners that played at least 100 snaps. And so if you look at all of those corners, or 100 snaps in coverage, rather, specifically in coverage, if you look at all of those, he was 97th percentile in yards per coverage snap. So he was better than 97% of the other corners that played as many snaps. So great at that. And then 99th percentile in targets per coverage snap. He was 5th out of 530. This was 530 corners. So he was not getting thrown at a lot when he was on the field. Now, when he was getting thrown at, he was only 20th percentile in PBUs per target. He only had 1 pass breakup all of last year and no picks. So he was not making plays on the ball very much. And then he was 6th percentile in completion percentage when targeted, which kind of tracks with the 1 PBU. When teams were throwing at him, it was mostly completions. So not getting thrown at a lot, not giving up a lot of yards, like in terms of getting thrown at a lot, like total yards and yards per coverage snap. But when he was getting thrown at, it was often completed and he was not making plays on the ball. In terms of
here's a question about that. It's like, is he only getting thrown at when he's actually
they're wide open?
They're wide open, right? He's lost the coverage and the guy's wide open.
Something, I mean, 1 PBU over the course of a year is not a lot. But, I mean, like you said, not getting targeted a lot. It's like only like 20-some targets. So it's, kind of a good and bad in some ways. He was good against the run, which I kind of mentioned briefly for a corner. He was 85th percentile in stop rate amongst those corners and 90th percentile in missed tackle rate. So he was getting a good amount of stops in the run game, and he was not missing tackles, which is kind of why I think he should be able to play some special teams. So, like, that was kind of an interesting part of his profile, I thought.
Yeah, this is something you've been caring more and more about.
Tackling from corners. I think the more I watched the Seattle defense last year, I was like, I don't know if you can have a good defense if your corners don't tackle. Like, if they aren't willing to, like, bring physicality and energy in the run game. I don't know if you can have a top level defense without that anymore. So I think that makes sense for him. And I've talked about that with St. Just as well. And I think that's why they keep trying to take Carrington Valentine off the field
over and over again.
They've tried to replace him every year. They've tried to replace him.
Voodoo around whoever tries to replace him.
Yeah, exactly. It's like Stokes had like the worst year, and then was great the second he left, and no longer was trying to replace Valentine. He was great for the Raiders last year, and then whatchamacallit? How am I already forgetting his name? Hobbs, yeah. Hobbs got hurt.
Got like a nasty injury.
Yeah, it's been a rough go of guys trying to replace Carrington Valentine, but the Packers have continuously tried to replace him, and I think that's probably part of the reason why is the lack of tackling. In terms of what scouts had to say about him, Dane Brugler had him as his 27th corner and his 230th overall player, saying, quote, a top 5 national recruit out of high school, his career trajectory took a turn as he rehabbed a knee injury, which delayed his development at both USC and Alabama. He returned to Tuscaloosa for his senior year to boost his draft stock, but his snaps and production declined from his junior year. Jackson flashes the linear speed that made him a record-setting sprinter in high school. However, his cover instincts and understanding of the nuances of his position aren't on the same level. He is late to transition from his back pedal and can get turned around with his match movements. He needs to do a better job tracking the quarterback through the route and play stronger through the catch. Only one pass breakup in 2025, like you said. Jackson is a battle-tested size-speed athlete, but his inconsistent eye discipline and short area movements held him back on his college tape. Improvements in those areas and a role on special teams can get him on an NFL roster, end quote. And then this was a quote from Alabama co-defensive coordinator and defensive backs coach Maurice Linguist. This is per Bill Huber on SI had this quote. And this is, he coached him, so this is, I thought, like an interesting perspective to add. Quote, he came off of a really great junior year for us and then kind of went back and had some early adversity again this past year. So he's a guy that's shown great personal resiliency, great mental toughness, because he could have easily gone off into the deep end, for lack of a better term, but he always stayed steady, always stayed positive. He's a good teammate, a good person. People like being around him. His teammates respected him, end quote. And then in terms of what the Packers had to say about him, Brian Gutekunst had this quote, and this was per Packers Wire. Quote, certainly he has the size we're looking for. He's a rare athlete, combination of size, explosiveness, speed. He played a lot of football at a high level of competition. He's been through some adversity, and he made it to the other side of that, something that drew us to him as well. We ask of those guys playing outside at corner as far as size, length, speed, he has that. So it seems like, they're kind of taking a bet on an athlete, taking a bet on, the like work ethic, the person, the fact that he's like overcome some injuries and overcome, maybe not having the start to the college career he wanted, or just overall the college career he was expecting. And it seems like they're just like, hey, 6th round, take a shot on an athlete, size, speed, tackling ability. Why not? Right. That kind of seems like the attitude there.
Yeah. I also feel like when I'm looking at what they've done with the corner room this year, they're not only looking to add to it, but you ever get the impression they're looking for after this year, it's going to be completely made over?
Oh, yeah. And that was something we talked about a little bit. It was like,
they will have
even after
Nixon
this year, there's
Valentine after this year.
No, yeah, exactly. It's like, it's just going to be these new guys, probably, because we kind of assume they're not going to give Nixon a new deal, right? Like it's not a guarantee, but I would be surprised if they did. And same with Valentine, given the fact they keep trying to replace him.
They keep showing their hand about what they think of Valentine, and it keeps blowing up on them.
And he keeps winning the job back every time.
Is it winning the job back if you have a voodoo doll and you keep like sticking into the legs of your replacements?
Well, but we remember when they were playing Stokes over him, and everyone was like, why are they playing Stokes over Valentine? Valentine has been so much better this year. And Valentine was better that year. Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing. I don't think Valentine's bad. I want to make that clear. I think he's like totally serviceable. It's just he's like such a poor tackler that it's like a major flaw. And I think other than that, like he's decent.
I think he also regressed a little bit in his coverage last year. I feel it was not as good as previous years. We would say he's good in coverage, but
it was not as good as previous years. That's true.
So bad.
Yeah, the coverage was not as good as previous years, where like at that point it's like, okay, you have to be good in coverage, like to like be this bad at tackling. But I do think, like I said, I think the corners looked bad because there was zero pass rush without Micah, like actually zero. And
without Micah and Wyatt by that time. Yeah.
And so I don't know if there's a corner pair on earth that's going to look like good in that scenario. So that's why I felt like corner was a need, but I mean, I guess the Packers thought it was a major need. Any final thoughts on Domani Jackson and this deep dive? I think overall, you and I feel pretty similarly. Makes sense to add that type of body type to the room, should contribute on special teams. I think the question is just like if you needed another corner, but if you thought you did, I'm totally fine with him as like a dart throw there.
Yeah, I felt like they needed to add 2 to the room, especially when you're thinking, as they often do, we're not necessarily drafting for 2026.
It's a 2-year plan also, yeah.
So they're adding corners.
We really
for
added 3 to the
2027.
room. Yeah. With adding St. Just and then Cisse and then Domani Jackson as another third body of that room. But that was something where it was like we had to pay Diggs what, $1 million to like come to the backup,
for
$500,000 because we were
snaps.
In such a dire predicament depth wise at corner. Once Haddon went down, it was like we got nobody. And so I think that I wonder if that moment scared them like so badly. They were like, we got to throw 3 more guys in this room because this is just not going to work. Like we can't again be like, oh, we'll pay a guy $500,000 for 5 snaps because like we are so like in such a terrible spot for depth. That was probably part of it, I would imagine. Because Gutekunst said in the offseason press conferences, like, we really need more depth in that corner room. He said that more about that than about like new starters.
Yeah. Yeah. Though I think the starters are coming down the road. And they're
Also, yes.
hoping
Yeah.
that they've added.
I mean, I think the ideal
starters.
is Cisse is ready to start right away, and then like St. Juste or Jackson wins the third job. Like, I think that's because I don't think they're going to bench Keyshawn. I think they like Keyshawn too much. But
Ideally, St. Juste and Cisse are so good.
Well, I think ideally Cisse and Domani Jackson are just like superstars right away, and it's like both the guys on rookie contracts.
They both take starting jobs because they're so much better than everybody else.
Hey, it's the offseason. We can dream. But I think that does it for the Domani Jackson deep dive. Like we said, though, this is going to be a double up. So we're moving right on to the Trey Smack deep dive. So moving on to Trey Smack.
This
medium
dive.
Medium dive. Medium dive.
There's only so deep you can make a dive with a kicker.
This is true for a kicker. But anyway, Trey Smack, 6th round, pick 216, kicker out of Florida. A little bit about him. He was a 3-year starter out of 4 years over at Florida. Sorry, you were going to say something?
Oh, it's more like a snorkel than
not even a medium dive, not even a dive of any kind.
It's more like you're snorkeling, and maybe you dive down while you hold your breath, rather than having a tank and doing a really deep dive.
Yeah. So, and Green Bay traded 2 7th-round picks to get up to take him in the 6th round. So that's something to keep in mind. Widely considered the best kicker prospect in the draft by both Daniel Jeremiah, Mel Kiper, Dane Brugler, a bunch of different guys. He was actually initially a lacrosse player in high school, but picked up, football. He was already a kicker, but started taking being a kicker more seriously once COVID happened, and they locked up the lacrosse goals and started focusing on kicking, and was like, oh wait, I'm like quite good at this. I could maybe do this professionally. But anyway, Dad, what were your initial thoughts when this selection was made?
So I was glad to see the Packers were taking the kicker position seriously after the disaster of last year, because it seemed like, oh, we're just gonna run it back. Everything's fine. It's the dog with the coffee cup, in the inferno.
The room's on fire.
Everything's fine.
This
is fine. And that seemed to be the message they were giving us the whole time. And so, let's do something different, because that was just not good enough.
Unacceptably bad, really bad.
So let's hope it works out this time.
Yeah, that's the thing is, I have mixed feelings on selecting. Oh, I also forgot to mention he's going to be 23 by the time the season starts. So that's something to put out there as well. But I have mixed feelings on the selecting a kicker in the draft. It's kind of like, it feels like one of those things that's kind of a crapshoot. The counter argument is all 6th round picks and 7th round picks are kind of crapshoots, and so the hit rate is not going to be high anyways. But just as kind of I will say, first, I do though, like you said, that this shows that they were not okay with how the kicking was last year. And I was worried that they were okay with it, and it was just going to be it'll be better. Yeah, exactly.
They waited, they paid the bonus.
Yeah, it felt like they were going to be McManus will just be better next year. And I was like, are we sure he's going to? Because he was really bad this year. It was really, really bad.
Saying things like, oh, but he didn't miss kick for
a month or two.
He didn't kick one over 40 either.
It's it was all under 40. And then anytime he had to kick anything where it really mattered, it was really dicey. And we lost probably 3 games because he couldn't make kicks, including a playoff game. Are we really just going to be it's going to be back? And so I did like that it was a definitive statement from the team where it was no, that was not good enough. We need to be better there. We need to be better at that position. In terms of drafting a kicker, I did just want to, put this in here.
Let's just throw this wet blanket out there.
Yeah, drafting kickers is, here's the thing. The hit rate is not high, and the counter argument is the hit rate on 6th and 7th round picks in general is not very high. So it's it's probably about the same.
So are you advocating for picking a 2nd round kicker like the Raiders with Sebastian Janikowski then? So you have a high hit rate?
No, because you don't. Because what was it? It was the guy that the Roberto Aguayo was a third or 2nd rounder. Jake Moody was a 3rd round. So okay, I just wanted to point this out. So from 2020 to 2025, 13 kickers were drafted. So in the past 5 years, 13 kickers were drafted. Of those 13, 2 were rookies last year. So I feel like it's too early to tell either way. And that was Borregales for the Patriots and Loop for the
I think
Ravens.
They had okay years though, even though it's early.
Loop missed the kick to send them to the playoffs. So
he blew that kick against the Steelers, right?
Yeah. So I think it's just time will tell on those 2 guys. it's interesting also of those 13 kickers drafted since 2020 from 2020 to 2025, the Patriots took 3. So the Patriots have drafted 3 kickers in the last 5 years.
So don't do what they do.
Yeah, I mean, we're on 2, so I guess we'll see. But anyway, of those 13 kickers, 2 were rookies last year, too early to tell, I feel like. Of the other 11, I would say 4 can be considered success, where they lasted a decent. They're still on the team that drafted them, we'll say, like after a handful of years, and that is Tyler Bass, Evan McPherson, Cam Little, and Will Reichard. I think are the 4 that you could say are like decent success of the 11. Of the other 7, none of them lasted past 2 seasons of the team that drafted them. So I guess quickly is
some of them
something
ended up
there.
being good later on, though, right?
Yeah,
like,
some
Daniel
will
Carlson
end up.
is probably,
Yeah, he's not in this group. He's not in this group because he was drafted like in 2017 or something.
He was earlier.
I'm only looking at the last 5 years. But yeah, so like of this group since 2020, I'm looking at, here are the guys I'm looking at. Sam Sloman, you've probably never heard of him. Tyler Bass, success.
Okay.
Justin Rohrwasser, I don't think he ever actually even took a kick with the team. I think he was cut before the season started.
Oh man,
Evan McPherson,
bad, huh?
success.
Like they brought the guy in. And he was like,
Yeah.
oh.
Nope, right away, no. Cade York, didn't work out for him. Anders Carlson, familiar name, didn't work out for him. Chad Ryland, who I think was decent for the Cardinals, but he was drafted by the Patriots, was not good for them. Jake Moody, who actually technically lasted past 2 years, but like lasted one more game, like past 2 years, and then was cut. So I felt like that didn't even count. And then Cam Little, who's been really good. Joshua Carty, who was not good. Been cut by the Rams since then. Will Reichard, who's been pretty good for the Vikings. Tyler Loop and Borregales, like I said, too soon to sell. But 7 of those guys essentially did not last past 2 years. So the point is, drafting kickers usually doesn't work, but it might work for us. You never know. But anyway, what is?
Oh, there's a meme you want to be part of.
That's a good one. What is your production profile though? Scouting on Trey Smack. How did he kick while he was at Florida?
So I looked at his kicking success from just different distances because this is what really matters, and I'm comparing it to our last foray into the market with Anders Carlson, where if you remember,
that's the thing. Carlson,
he was so bad,
never good in college. He was not even good in college.
He should have been. He was terrible in college.
If his name was Anders like Williamson, probably would not have been drafted. But he was the brother of a good kicker, and that was, I think, the only reason he got drafted.
Yeah. So Smack didn't kick very many short ones. 14 for 14 from 20 to 29 yards. Carlson was 33 of 33, so he kicked a lot actually. From 30 to 39, Smack was 15 of 18, so that's not great. Carlson was 15 to 20, so he's even worse.
Yeah.
From 40 to 49, Smack was 14 of 19. Carlson was 25 of 39. 14 misses in there.
Just like hovering around like under 60%, like around 60% for kicks from like 40-ish yards. Like that's not great. But anyway, Smack was much better there.
And then 10 of 13 over 50 with a long of 56.
Yeah, he's got a big leg, and I think that's probably what drew the Packers to him.
And Carlson was only 5 of 17 over 50. So
5 of 17.
5 of 17 over 50.
Goodness gracious.
If you just look at what he was over 40, he was 30.
I don't know what we thought was going to happen.
30 of 56.
Yeah, I don't know.
40.
I have no idea what the thought process was there. And I think they asked like Gutekunst, he's like, "Oh yeah, we really like think that Trey Smack can come in and like you know be a good kicker in this league." And then I think he threw it on the sides like, "But we thought that with Anders too." I was like, "Yeah, that's
okay,
true."
So
you didn't need to say that. But...
Throw some shade on your own judgment.
Well, what is it that Matt LaFleur said? Every time he goes out there, I pray. Is that what Matt LaFleur told Tom Rinaldi on the sideline?
He might have said pray or hold it back, but I think he said he had to pray every time he went out there. It's like, yeah, you know why? I guess those prayers weren't answered.
No, they were not answered. They were not answered. But Smack, like you said, much better prospect than Carlson in terms of how he was as a kicker at Florida. Really big leg during his time at Florida, which is evidenced by his success from over 50 yards. 10 of 13 is nothing to sneeze at with a long of 56. And then the extra points don't really matter because, like, the extra points in college are like the joke
that's
extra
true.
points.
They're like 10 yards shorter?
No, they're like literally the old school. Like they're from like the 5 yard.
It's like a 20-yard kick, right?
It's like nothing. Yeah, it's like like there's almost no way to miss it. Like it should not be missable. Like
he missed one, but maybe it was blocked.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But anyway, in terms of what scouts had to say about him, like we said, Brugler had him as the first kicker of the 40 he ranked and his 226th overall player. So, had him as a draftable player, had him as a 6th round grade. Jamie Cole, the director of Cole's kicking camps, which is for high school players, said, quote, "The first thing that we remember about Trey, it was probably at our national camp." And this is when he was talking to Packers on SI. This is where the source is from. Quote, "We were doing kickoff chartings and he was kicking off from the 40 and there was a scoreboard behind the end zone and he kept hitting the scoreboard, which was about 5 yards behind the end zone. Quote, "It was just different. He's always been very mature. And I think in college, he really honed in on being consistent day in and day out. He's had some good coaches at Florida, been in some big environments, and he earned that opportunity to be in big environments because he was so talented." And so that was what scouts had to say about him and people in the kicking community. And then in terms of what Cam Acord had to say, who was the new Packers special teams coordinator, he said, quote, "Straight ball, accuracy, his ball doesn't move a lot. Quote, I don't need the guy 65 yards personally. I want the guy that's going to put it through consistently from 55. We're playing in Green Bay. We're going to play in elements. You're not going to need the 60-yard ball all the time. You're going to need the 45-yard ball with a 14-mile-per-hour crosswind. His ball not moving was definitely a big part," end quote. And so it seems like, the thing with kicking, like, I feel like it's so mental that it's really hard to, like, predict at all if these guys are going to be
who's going to get the yips.
Exactly.
So
it's like literally impossible to know. It's impossible.
It's like, who's all of a sudden not going to be able to throw from second to first or not be able to make a 2-foot putt?
Exactly. It's just so mental that I feel like it's hard to project. But I think if you're going to draft a kicker, like drafting a guy with a big leg who has played in big games and has decent percentages like during his time in college, I think if you're going to take a kicker, like this is the type of kicker. This is not an Anders Carlson pick. The Anders Carlson pick was like, you picked a bad college kicker. Like that was like
that you could fix him.
Yes. And it was like, that was just like, we don't have a kicker on the roster. Like we just need a guy. And he was the third kicker drafted in that draft. And so it was like, yeah, it was because Moody and Ryland
was earlier.
I think Moody and Ryland were the two before him.
Okay.
But yeah, so if you're gonna take a kicker, I don't mind it. I like the lack of satisfaction, like not being satisfied with the kicking product last year. Like I really like that. And so I think you take one and you hope for the best, I guess. But like I said, I think if you're gonna take a
that sounded remarkably similar to LaFleur's response to what he thinks about the kicking.
Exactly. It's like, oh, just hope for the best. But
I'm just gonna close my eyes and pray.
When it comes to Trey Smack, I think if you're gonna draft a kicker, this is the type of kicker you should draft. I like the urgency to make the position better, and I think beyond that, we're just going to have to watch during camp. The Packers have cleared the road for him in terms of competition. It's his job to lose. It probably already was his job to lose, but now it is really like he would have to be really bad in camp to lose it. So like it's his job essentially, and I think hopefully he like claims it and never lets it go.
Yeah, let's hope that he does not win it by default.
Yeah. Yeah,
so he just looked great, but
but there's the competition is Haversick
just falls right in his face.
Exactly. So it's like it's not like there's really a lot of competition there, but yeah. So, any final thoughts on Smack? Which also we went the whole time without mentioning.
Yes,
Trey Smack,
fantastic,
and I think it's Trey Smack the third.
Oh, I think Trey might be because of the third.
Ah, you're right. It is James Trey Smack the third, but still the third, which field goal, 3 points. So
smack some Treys.
But anyway, great name for a kicker. That's the point. But anyway, any final thoughts, or should we wrap things up here?
Ooh, any more thoughts, musings, random ramblings?
I don't know. I just think good to get a new kicker in there. I'm glad they weren't like satisfied with how leaving 7 points on the board in a playoff game. Yeah, it's just that was like that should have been like it's over, like it's done, which it seems like it was. So that's good.
I'm hoping for better things from special teams this year. This time.
This is the year.
I'm ready to
decent
special teams. I'm ready to be hurt again.
I mean, I guess we'll see. But anyway,
okay. Here's was our last like 4 kickers, were they all Charlie Brown?
You're saying it's Daniel Whelan's fault? he's pulling the ball,
flying through the air, flying on their back.
I mean, shoot. So the last 4 kickers were Carlson,
McManus had a good half year for us.
Narveson, and McManus. So, yeah, I mean, McManus did make his first major game was a game-winning kick against Houston, which was like not an easy kick either. And then he had a game-winning kick against
even in his good
Jaguars,
year, good half year for us.
And then his good half year, he still missed one against the Eagles, which was like, oh man, we can't do anything right. That was like when I was like, man, we really can't do anything in this game at all. And then this past year was a disaster. So yeah, but no, it's been a road to try and find a kicker. Hopefully we have found one in Trey Smack, but time will tell. But anyway, this has been the Father Son Packers podcast, our deep dive into Domani Jackson and Trey Smack. If you like what you heard, subscribe, whether that's Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Tell a friend, leave a comment, leave a review, leave a like. Follow us on Blue Sky at Father Son Packer for updates on the latest Packers-related news. Stay tuned here for an episode every week during the rest of the offseason. We'll be talking about, biggest question marks for the team, training camp battles, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So thanks for listening. Until next time, go Pack, go.
Go Pack, go.